we presented to the school committee back in November of 2009 an acceleration agenda, and it had 3 big goals in it. One toward proficiency, another one that really focused on closing access and achievement gaps for students, and a third one that really helps students to be college ready. And so we've been working very hard over the last couple of years to really focus on more kids doing well on MCAS, more kids having opportunities, and more kids graduating from college. I think we feel good about the progress we've made. Our graduation rates are up. Our dropout rates are down. We have 3,000 more students having weekly arts and music-rich experiences. And we have gone from 1% of our non-exam 8th graders taking Algebra 1 to 26% of them taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade in non-exam schools. And we have more Black and Latino kids in particular in advanced placement classes. So trying to create opportunity, trying to make sure that we move more kids to MCAS proficiency, and trying to get more kids to graduate and fewer kids to drop out. We've done that by putting in things like credit recovery so kids can make up credits when they get behind, putting in a re-engagement center where we've invited people who already dropped out to come back to school and getting them re-enrolled, and also trying to make sure that we increase opportunities. We have a major initiative around the arts and music. We've expanded our urban debate club for the high school so that more students are participating, as well as I mentioned our advanced placement courses for students. This year, as we began the fall, we did say to the school committee that we had a significant budget gap between revenue and expenditures of about $63 million. We also proposed that we close about 10 schools or merge several others so that we could use those resources in more effective ways. We had a series of community meetings, very difficult and painful process, but we were able to realize about $10.6 million in savings to close that gap. In addition, we got about $10 million from the U.S. Department where they put in a jobs bill, and we're going to use that not this year but next year to help close the gap and not have to lay off as many people. And we have an additional $8 million from the city of Boston. And so now we're going through a more extensive process of trying to look at how we distribute resources and how are those resources used in our schools to create greater equality. So we're just in the process of allocating our resources out to the schools. And what we did is we created a formula called the weighted student formula, where we give more resources to schools based on their needs. So every school gets a basic foundation aid of $200,000. That will make sure that they can hire a principal or headmaster, and they can hire a secretary and office staff. So that's what the first basic form. And then every school, we give a certain amount per each student. And then after that, we give a school more money if they have more poor kids. If they're in a school, an elementary school that has over 80% of poverty, we give them even more money. If they're in a high school that has over 67% in poverty, we give them more money for concentrations of poverty. We also add money if they have English language learners, students learning English, and we add money if they have more special ed kids. We also look at all the kids who enter 9th grade and who are not on track for graduating on time. And we give schools, high schools, an additional allocation for the number of students that they have that are not on track. And how we measure on track is if you were in 8th grade and you're moving to 9th grade, if you were in school less than 80% of the time, if you had failed one or more core courses, if you had not done well on MCAS, we consider you at more at risk for dropping out. So we try to put in place additional money for poverty, additional money for students learning English, additional money for students that are not on track, and then really try to say, here's what each school gets. But it's not based on what you got last year. It's based on the students you have. We want to make sure that the budget we use is very student-focused and that we really do focus on children and their particular needs. In the past, we would have funded programs or schools based on how many teachers they had. This is not how many teachers you have, it's not what program. It is really based on what are the students you have and what are the services they need. We're in the process, as you know, of implementing an agreement that we have with the Department of Justice and the Office of Civil Rights to do a better job of serving our English language learners. And in Boston, we have about 28% of our student population of 56,000 students that are English language learners. And we have been working very hard to do a better job of outreaching, not just to the Spanish-speaking students, of course that represents our largest population, but also we have a large Asian population, primarily Vietnamese and Chinese. We have a large Cape Verdean population, a large Haitian population, and also a growing Somali population that we're trying to make sure that we meet the needs of those students who are new to this country and who want to get a great education so that they're prepared for their kids to go on to some kind of post-secondary experience. I've talked a lot already, so maybe what I should do is stop and invite you to ask us questions or ask me to speak to a particular topic that you're interested in exploring. Yes.
I just wanted to know, there hasn't been a lot of talk yet, maybe I haven't read all of the paperwork here, but what are we doing about looking at the future? How are we preparing kids for the new global economy? Because I don't see a lot of discussion about math and science and technology. I've heard you said a lot about arts and music, which is great, but what about these other baseline
So that's
issues?
a very good question. One thing that we're doing in mathematics in particular, Boston has been taking the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is a nationwide test that's given in cities across the country. And in Boston, we oversample. That means we test, they do a random sample across the country. We over-test in Boston to make sure we know where our kids are. And in looking across 20 urban districts in the country, New York, D.C., anyway, they have said that Boston has outperformed the others in mathematics. The only ones that have come close to us in mathematics has been Austin, Texas, and Charlotte, North Carolina, but those tend to be county districts. So we've made progress. We have a lot more to do. More of our students are passing, but there's still an achievement gap between how our Black and Latino students are doing and how our white and Asian students are doing. When we looked a couple of years ago at who is taking Algebra 1 at 8th grade, and you need Algebra 1 at 8th grade so that you can take geometry at 9th, Algebra 2 at 10th, trigonometry or some math analysis class at 11th, and then either pre-calculus or some pre-calculus course. If you take that stream of mathematics, you'll be more likely to do well in college, and you'll have a lot more courses available to you. At any rate, we realized that only 1% of all of the non-exam schools, like if you take out Boston Latin School, where all the kids are taking in 8th grade Algebra 1, Boston Latin Academy, and John D. O'Brien, what you see is that too few kids are taking Algebra 1 at the 8th grade, only 1% of the non-exam. So we started beefing up saying every 8th grade school, every school that has 8th graders should try to be offering Algebra 1 at the 8th grade. Now, we know that just throwing a kid in class doesn't mean they'll do well. So then we started offering these summer sessions for kids right before they go into 8th grade to have them have the tools and the skills so that they'll be stronger in teaching Algebra 1. Teachers will be stronger teaching Algebra 1, but more kids. And now already we've jumped to over 25% of the non-exam 8th graders are now taking Algebra 1. And that's a really major increase that we hadn't seen before. So that's mathematics. The John D. O'Brien, we have had a special partnership with Mass Insight. John D. O'Brien is one exam school that has a lot more Black and Latino students and Asian students. So we've worked with them to increase the number of Black and Latino kids in particular, and Asian kids too, taking advanced placement courses. Again, some of those advanced placement courses are in mathematics and science, like an advanced placement chemistry class or something like that. So across the district, there are more kids taking advanced placement, more Black and Latino kids taking advanced placement. We have looked at our science scores. They're not good in Boston, and they're not good across the state. So we have to do more work to improve science education. We've just written a grant to the National Science Foundation to partner to improve the quality of teaching, training teachers to do a better job of teaching both math and science. We've invested particularly in the science labs at John D. O'Brien, and last year we opened up a new robotics lab, and we're offering some robotics activities in other schools. So now each year we have kind of a robotics competition. We have something called Technology Goes Home, and that's a program to close the digital divide between students who don't have technology at home and families who do have technology at home. We've given all of our teachers laptops, but we also want to make sure that we train other family members to use technology well and to begin to integrate technology into their work. We have a lot more work to do in terms of technology. This year we're going to revamp our entire technology system so that we have better data on every single student, and we can identify the kids early on who are not on track and help them pass. I think that last year we bought all new reading materials K through 5 to really beef up our literacy program, and this year we brought new anthologies, which is a collection of good literature for all of our secondary students. So I think we're really trying to invest in ways that produce better results in those areas where students might be more at risk for not doing well. And we know math and science end up being big gatekeepers. I think in the President's remarks at the State of the Union, he talked more about the importance of math and science investments. And I think we have to do a lot more to make sure that a broader array of students are getting great opportunities to invest in the math and science areas. It's a really great question and one we continue to work on.